Hi everyone, welcome to today's Blab topic, 5 clever ways to deal with judgmental people. My name is Dawn Wiggins. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and an expert in relationships. I'm joined today with Dagmar Cattell, SEO expert, and I will give her an opportunity to introduce herself. Welcome, Dagmar.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. I always look forward to these Blab shows because you would think it has nothing to do with SEO and has everything to do with SEO and online marketing, believe it or not. So especially this week, this is a topic close to my heart and close to my brain and mental health. Because in the last few days, I explored a lot, and I'm not sure if they are opinions I explored or judgments. So thank you so much for having me, and I help entrepreneurs to turn their expertise into global business.
So I'm so grateful that Dagmar is here with us today. She always adds so much to our show, and she has really helped me in terms of being able to share my expertise with the world. And so I'm grateful to her today and always, and I'm ready to jump in. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today, whether you're with us live or you're watching the recording. Thank you so much for taking your time. I am always open to any questions or comments. I'd love to answer any questions or thoughts that you have on this topic. So jump in anytime. So today's topic, judgmental people, I'm going to share with you 5 clever ways to dealing with them. Some of them are going to have more to do with how you will respond literally inside of the conversation. And some of the things that I'm going to share are going to be more about your own internal process and how you can manage your own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. I could wander a lot of different directions on this topic, so if you have to pull me back in at any time, do that. But I'm going to start by
my best.
I'm going to start by talking about the difference between opinion and judgment. I honestly believe that people are unaware of the difference between opinion and judgment, and that's what leads to a lot of people believing that they're sharing one, but they're really being hurtful and accusatory with the other. So the difference between an opinion would be something like, I don't particularly care for that shirt you're wearing. That color doesn't appeal to me. Versus saying, that's an ugly shirt. So I'm starting with a really simple example, and throughout my blog post and the rest of the talk, I'm going to actually use political examples because I think that they're really relevant to today. But I want to start with a simple example. So when I indicate that something like a shirt isn't something that I would choose, I'm sharing with you what my likes and dislikes are, instead of deciding for the entire world that that shirt is ugly or bad. And so you'd be surprised how often we say things, we label things, and once we label something, it pretty much becomes a judgment. So that's even when we say things are good or bad, right or wrong, those are all judgments. Now, some of them may be positive judgments, but the key thing here is to recognize when your language and your thought process, your mind is really, really invested in labeling or judging. Because even if you're doing it in a positive way, you're probably doing it in a negative way also. It just kind of comes with the territory of being human. So my goal in my own personal development has really been to move away from labels and judgments in terms of how I think. And therefore, when I interact with people, I'm less likely to be accusatory and more likely to come from an open-minded position.
Makes sense. Just thought, you know what, both can be hurtful. I just thought about it because I had opinions and judgment the last 3 days, and both can be hurtful depending on if you take it personal or not.
Aha, which we will get to later. That is definitely a part of today's talk. So now that we've covered a little bit about the difference between opinion and judgment, the leading example that I'm going to use with politics for today, a common judgment that you would hear is Donald Trump is destroying the Republican Party. Now, I have zero even opinion on this topic, okay? I'm just using it as an example. But we've heard a lot of political rhetoric out there these days, and a judgment would be Donald Trump is destroying the Republican Party. An opinion would be, I don't care for Donald Trump's politics or worldviews. So, or I don't agree with them. So one is just a statement about my likes and dislikes, whereas one is literally making a decision that this particular person is wrong, his beliefs are inappropriate, it's hurtful and judgy. So that's the kind of example that we're going to go with throughout the rest of the show today. So the first clever way to deal with judgmental people is to pay them a compliment. And the reason that paying someone a compliment when they're really expressing judgment is effective and clever is because you are creating unity where previously when there was all that judgment, there was a divide. So when you can pay someone a compliment that is a genuine compliment about their inner being, not like you have beautiful eyes, but one where you can recognize something about their inner being that has value, then it changes the course of the conversation. So using the political example of someone who was passionately judging something related to politics, you might say something like, I'm really impressed by your dedication and commitment.
Oh, I like that.
Regardless of which candidate we support. So it's a two-part sentence. You're giving a compliment, and then you're also indicating that you can acknowledge their worth and their value, regardless of what both people believe. So it's a unifying compliment that can change the direction of the conversation.
You know what, Donna, I just thought about it. It's easier if you love this person or if you have a positive connection to this person. It's very difficult if you strongly have an emotion to something you care about and then you get this response. So to give them a compliment in this situation, you really need to stop breathing for a second and think.
Yes. So you're absolutely right. And the reason that it is so important to practice some of these things is because folks who are really engrossed in a judgmental way of thinking or speaking, they want you to join them in their judgment. When someone is creating a judgment or articulating a judgment, they want their view of things validated. So they're going to do anything they can to convince you of their truth. So as soon as you start to respond from a judgmental place yourself, you're feeding right into the process. So that's why taking a positive approach, it interrupts it for ourselves as much as it shifts and redirects the direction of the conversation you're having with the other person. And we're going to continue to look at the layers of this that you just brought up, how it's easier to do it with someone you love than someone that you don't agree with.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see Michael just posted something in the chat? Do you want to respond to that?
Okay, Michael, I myself do not care for the Trump, but 99% of the tallies and statistics being put into social media are absolutely corporate-sponsored media and representatives. There you go. So that is a great example of an opinion and not a judgment. So if you feel compelled to make a comment in regards to politics, it doesn't have to be something that's judgmental. And so I can see, Michael, that you don't love the way that the media is portraying things, but you aren't doing it in a way that's shaming them or criticizing them. Judgment it shows up in a lot of ways, right? It can be gossip, it can be criticism. Anytime we use the word should, we're typically judging something. You should wear that shirt. You should vote for this candidate. You should treat me with respect. We have made a decision for someone else, which we can't do. So
that's at the end what it is. So judgment is I decide what this other person should feel, think, or do. See.
So because we all deserve the dignity of our choices and diversity is a beautiful thing, the problem is when one of us decides what everyone else's truth or reality needs to be. And so eliminating words like should from your vocabulary and replacing them with things like could, that creates opportunity. It creates openness and diversity. So we've talked about the difference between opinion and judgment. We've talked about how judgment shows up. And we've talked about our first clever way, which is to pay someone a compliment. And I gave you guys an example. The next clever way to deal with someone who is judgmental is to share something you're grateful for through the course of the conversation. So say someone is, this is also another unifying tactic, and it's also one that redirects the conversation towards positivity instead of negativity. So say we're back on this political topic and someone is once again leveraging some sort of judgment against a political candidate. Mm-hmm. This is where we could make a gratitude statement, something like, I'm so grateful that we live in a country where we can have diverse opinions, again, regardless of the candidate that we choose. So pick something that we're grateful for that unifies and that indicates that we all have our own beliefs and values and that is an acceptable thing.
I love that you just said, because at the end, it's unity. It's really bringing the people together, because everybody who lives in the United States loves the United States and loves the values we get, like freedom and free speech and everything. So that's something we all can agree on, no matter what candidate perhaps we like or dislike. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really, for sure, a great gold nugget to just remember. So what holds us together? So what is the bigger picture, right? What is the bigger vision of that?
Absolutely. And a lot of us in the United States, I know that we don't just have that those of you that are out there that are listening and participating, you're not all in the United States, and that's awesome. I'm so grateful for your perspective and your viewership. But I think here in the United States, we do have a really limited awareness, and we take a lot of things for granted. You know, there are still plenty of countries where there is no such thing as voting, or there is no such thing as discourse, and there is still a lot of oppression, violence, and painful things that are experienced as a result of expressing even an opinion, let alone a judgment. Yeah. So in our society, I think in a lot of ways we tend to celebrate judgment, which is unfortunate. You know, the media tends to thrive on conflict and image and power, and those things are not conducive to a positive way of thinking or to unity. So I think that if we really want to shift this consciousness, we have to be the change we want to see in the world. We have to be the ones that are willing to implement these things in order to really interrupt a judgmental discourse.
Oh, if you think about it, right, and just in general, that's the humankind thrives on secrets and thrives on hearing something because we are curious, right? Would you watch something you already know? Perhaps not, but do you want to watch something, what's going on or what's happening? And especially if you live in a perhaps peaceful or boring or whatever life, right? Then you have perhaps more the feeling you want to listen to something what's very exciting or very entertaining because it's not part of your life. You can turn it off and on anytime. So I think
to a larger issue, I think, like when we have dissatisfaction with our own lives, when we get bored or we're unsatisfied, then what you're talking about absolutely plays a role. We want to see inside someone else's life to feel that excitement or to fulfill some restless urge.
Yeah. And I think, you know what, especially, and just as an example, it has nothing to do with politics. It's like, how many times do we as humans sit in front of the television and then we judge people on the television, right? Or in the television. We judge people, how they look, what they say. So it's so easy for us with this judgment. And then when we go out and through the front door in the real life, we do the same. So I think we just lost that when we do it in real life, we hurt people because we do it so easily in our four rooms all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of wisdom to what you just said. Then a lot of the media, especially on TV, magazines, online, we thrive. Not really, but the media wants us to thrive on judgment because they want us talking about, you know, pop culture and who did what and, you know, what the Kardashians are up to and whose butt looks better. And, you know, those are all judgments, better and worse. Those are judgments also. So think about just when you're in the grocery store and you're checking out and you have all those magazines there that say, you know, that are ranking things, best and worst beach bodies. And, you know, this is all judgment and we're inundated with it daily. And it's so, we don't realize that that's what it is, but that's what it is. And so it's starting to shape our brains in a way where we think with judgmental language in our minds. And so my goal today is to help shift that consciousness.
Perfect.
Yes. So the third clever way to deal with someone who is judgmental is to really understand how bias works. So we've just started to discuss it a little bit, but to really understand that we are all affected by bias, meaning the way that we were raised, the people we surround ourselves with, the media that we consume, and to really have an understanding that I have bias, the person I'm talking to has bias, and that by its very nature, bias creates a narrow view of things. And so if we're really going
to explain, like my roots are German. I'm not really sure what bias means.
It means that I don't have an objective view, that my beliefs and my opinions are shaped by my experiences.
So I'm not open-minded. Is that what it is?
I think that the more biases that we engage, the less open-minded we are. So we can understand, so I'll use myself as an example. So I grew up in Key Largo, like one of the Florida Keys. Mm-hmm. And my maternal side of my family was very, very religious. My father is an entrepreneur. So some of the biases that I was exposed to as a young child were small town island living, religious biases, and an entrepreneurial mindset. So seeing all of those three things, they affect my lens of the world. I have worked really hard through my life to shift some of those biases because, for instance, I didn't like how the rigid religious biases affected my view of the world, my view of myself, or the way I interacted or saw other people. So I've worked really hard to let go of that bias or to shift it. The bias of growing up in a small town, I still probably am affected by because I tend to resist small towns a little bit because there tends to be a lot of gossip and everybody knows everything. And so that's a bias I know that I have. So the more we can be aware of them and how they work, the more we can be conscious when we're coming into a conversation that the person we're engaging with, they have their own set of biases, as do I.
So then automatically, if both have it and both don't have openness, it's a fight immediately.
Yes.
And I don't see then at the end it's negative energy. You will never get a solution for that. You will never have a result except you start hating each other.
Exactly.
And then others who love you, they hate the other person. Then the other person's, whatever, family, friends, they hate you. So it becomes this huge, big thing about, at the end, nothing.
Yes, exactly. You nailed it. And so in this instance, what we want to do is we want to counteract bias. And the way that we do that is through curiosity and learning, through open-mindedness. So in this instance, something that we might say in a political conversation, for instance, would be, your perspective is so interesting. Please tell me more. I'm curious how you developed that belief. So now we have asked the person, yes, to talk about something more that we don't really care for, but we're learning about their bias, and we're also coming from a loving place where we're willing to hear that person instead of just shutting down based on our own biases and beliefs.
And you know what?
Open-minded, open-hearted place.
That's very difficult. That can be very difficult depending on how strongly you believe in your bias. Because for you, it's not a bias. For you, it's your world. For you, it's real values. And you cannot understand how somebody else cannot have these values or cannot see these values or can have another opinion. So you automatically think that the other person is a bad person, you're a good person.
Right. So bad and good right there. It's those same labels and judgments. And so this really is one of the keys to shifting our own mindset and our thinking, is to be willing to hear more about how someone developed that belief. Now I'm gonna go way out there for a minute, and I hope I keep you guys with me. So if, let's say, a century ago, We know that people tended to live in smaller homes, maybe 1 or 2 bedroom homes or huts, and they all lived under the same roof. So the way that family functioned a century ago was very, very different than today. Depending on the part of the world or the part of even this country, the standard of living was very different 100 years ago. So, or 200 years ago. So if today you heard a story where there was a family living in a 1-bedroom house or a studio and that the parents were having sex in front of the children, how shocked and appalled would you be?
Right.
So by today's standards, we would automatically decide, oh my God, that family is bad, they're wrong, they're abusing their children, someone call the Department of Children and Families, when contextually 100 or 200 years ago, and maybe even just in different parts of the world, that is completely acceptable and normal behavior. So based on today's society and standards, somebody decided that that's inappropriate behavior, but who says? So we have to be very, very careful that we're not just using our own lens and our bias to make decisions about what's right and what's wrong based on the only context that we are choosing to engage, which is what we're exposed to today. The more that we're willing to understand that, you know, the truth is not an opinion, the truth is not a judgment, that the truth cannot be decided for somebody else, the more likely we are to be able to have loving interactions with anyone. The more likely we are to be able to be open-minded in general. And this can be really challenging, especially for people who grew up in very political homes or very religious homes, because the nature of those things have become to make certain things that are uncertain, to create right and wrong, good and bad, and to really live by a set of really rigid rules. And the thing is that life really happens in the gray. And the more rules we create, the harder it is to function.
Oh, it's what you just said, right? And I learned that in Germany, living in little villages. So more you think your world is the only world, and so more you think what you think and see is the real world and is a real truth. And there's nothing outside. Everything outside is bad and horrible. And what is that? I don't know the English word for that. Like, they're all bad people outside your little world. And you only feel safe in this little world. And you try to protect this little world, that it stays and no changes. And you don't allow anybody in. So that's the biggest danger, because then this bad seed grows, right? And then you pull others in who have the same belief. Only this little world is the only real little world, and everybody else are strangers and foreigners and whatever, radicals.
And what you're describing is a huge hot topic today in American politics, right? About who's allowed in and who's not, and based on what. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of fear out there about, you know, we must protect ourselves from what we can't control or what we don't understand, and it becomes fear mongering, and people use judgment to try to control the population, and it snowballs. And so that brings us to our fourth clever way to deal with judgmental people, and that is practice acceptance. And
difficult.
This is, I told you in the beginning of the talk that some of these we're going to focus on how we interact with others, and some of them we're going to focus on how we interact with ourselves. So here's the thing to know, is that when we practice acceptance, that means that we're acknowledging that I cannot change you, Dagmar. There's nothing I can do to change your beliefs, your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings. All I can do is be aware and conscious of what I'm contributing to our relationship, and thus the larger picture of the world. Once I'm in acceptance about that, then I no longer have to engage with you in a way that I feel compelled to change your mind or to make you believe me. So if the thrust of our dialogue is that I have to convince you, that comes with a lot of pressure. It comes with a lot of disappointment and resentment. If you don't agree with me or if you don't believe me, I can end up feeling insecure that you don't find my opinion valuable. So there's all this garbage that goes on in our minds when we're not in acceptance about other people, who they are, how they are, what they think, feel, and believe. So if I can start out any interaction from a place of acceptance, saying, okay, you do you and I'm going to do me, and we're just going to come from that perspective, then what we're doing is we're reducing the conflict in our own mind. And that is really where we start to have a positive influence in the world of judgment.
Yeah.
When we can take control of our own mindset and be in acceptance about the people that we encounter on a daily basis.
Yeah. May I share for 2 minutes something what happened to me, just as an example, because I'm thinking about it after you said what's an opinion and what's a judgment, right? So I'm an animal lover. So I see there is this campaign to help this old abused elephant, right? So that's finally going to sanctuary. So I'm totally thinking, I go there, I want to show, like, I believe this elephant should go to sanctuary, 30 years old. Hey, if we are 80, we don't want to work anymore. And especially with every old person has pain. So every old animal has pain. So I'm going there, holding the sign. Others are there. And I thought about, should I do a video or not, right? So sun is shining. And I know without sunglasses, I cannot see anything. So I for sure will look like this. So I thought, oh, whatever, it's for a good cause, right? So just do the video. It's only a minute or two. I'm doing the video. I did other videos with others there too, right? Believe it or not, my video was the one was reshared everywhere, picked up everywhere. So first, all the people coming in and saying, oh, great, awesome. So then suddenly I had these people coming in from other circuses or dog breeders coming in. And it was a mix of opinions and judgments, right? Some said their circus animals say they don't feel pain. That's how they are. They're used to work so hard. And no, they can work. It's all good. And others said, look how she looks in the video. Look what she's saying. And she is in marketing. She shouldn't say anything because she has no clue about that. She never worked with an elephant in the circus, right? So I really tried to think about what's my goal here. Is my goal to discuss with all these people? No, it's not. So I posted, and I didn't write anything about the video. So I posted, this is my video. This is what I wanted to share, what's important to me. If they have another opinion, then please do your own post. Like, I have no problem if somebody wants to post whatever they want to post. It's their life. But if it's about my video, this was not a model contest. I mean, this was not win the beauty United States or whatever. And I looked at the video and I thought, wow, you look pretty bad. You look a little bit angry, but was not angry, it was just the sun. But I had to let go, right? What I felt about how I look, how I present myself, what really do I say? I just wanted to help. So I let it go and I thought, I just want to help. And I don't want to discuss with the people. If they have another opinion, fine. If they want to judge me, I'm not in the mood. And that helped me to overcome these negative feelings because we all want to be loved, right? I don't want that anybody judge me or makes jokes about me or whatever. So my goal is to help this elephant. I didn't respond to it and I still will help this elephant, but I had to overcome this. Now suddenly you are visible. Right? Suddenly now you have this reshared video everywhere, wherever this video now is. So you have to stand up and say, others have opinions, others have judgments. Is it important to me, their opinion and their judgment? Not really. I can live with that they have another one. I just want to help and want to see, hopefully, a positive result. And that's what I'm striving on. I don't want to strive on negative energy because as soon as I would respond back to them, would be the most horrible fight at all. And then you have a war with all these people and then they follow you and then they post everywhere. For what? Like, and that's it's really not about me.
Yeah, that's really what we're talking about today. It's really wonderful insight that you have. The goal in learning how to deal with judgment isn't so that we can change all of the people and make them do it the way we do it. It's so that we can change our inner awareness and satisfaction. So if there's a cause that you believe in, if there's something that you are passionate about and you love, and I think the elephant's name is Nosy, which I think is adorable. then it's really irrelevant what kind of feedback you get, because you're just sharing your opinion and putting it out there. And that takes a lot of courage to do that, and to be vulnerable, and to not get into a power struggle, and to not join people in their judgment. Because as I said in the beginning, that's what people want you to do. They want you to join them in their judgment, because that's what validates their self-worth. That's what validates their ego, really. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about in his videos and in his books about not needing to make someone else wrong so that you can feel right. Or so that you feel
right.
better. Yeah. So that's a lot of what we're talking about here, is just being okay with it is what it is, and no one has to be right or wrong. It just is. And that's true acceptance. And I know that that's some real spiritual enlightenment stuff there, but that's what I work towards on a daily basis to practice.
I think, Dawn, what is true, and I'm learning that from you, if I feel good about myself, right? If I feel I want to do something good, and perhaps what I want to do something good is not something good for somebody else. Perhaps somebody else thinks I'm crazy, or why do I do this? I don't have anything else to do. Do I want to waste my time for that? But the thing is, it's my decision. So it's my decision. I decide consciously, do I want to do this? Is it worth it? Do I love doing this? And then for me, it was important just to do it and not to take myself so serious. Like, how do I look? How do I sound? Will it be a great video? Will it be a bad video? What is the response I get? So just do it and be in.
Right. All of that is your own judgments against yourself that I'm hearing. So that's awesome what you just articulated right there.
The inner voices.
Yeah. So when we're trying to eliminate judgment, being aware of how it's happening inside of our own minds, because those were the things that were going to hold you back from standing in your truth, from sharing your truth with the world. So if we're already anticipating judgment, now we're already defensive. We're already shut down. We're already getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, because there were people too, they were scared. So if they do this, if they do a video and support this cause, what will happen to that, right? So do you have to stand up for this? So will you have other people criticizing you? So I think it's really important to feel good about yourself.
Yes.
And that's, as you feel about yourself, you don't, perhaps it's still a little bit hurtful when you get this negative response, but you still can let it go in a loving way to the others and say, okay, it hurted me a little bit what they just said, but it's okay. Like, it's their world. So they need to live with it. I don't need to live with it.
Yes, and that's why this particular step, practice acceptance, it's probably the most clever way of dealing with judgmental people, because of exactly what you discussed. When we feel judged, it kicks up insecurity and anger. Mm-hmm. And so that makes us want to respond with anger and resentment and whatever it is. And so that is why this is really probably the most productive step.
Right. And you know what? Let me just say one thing. And I know it's funny. That's the reason why I shared. So I looked at this video and I thought, wow, you have a big nose in this video. And wow, this was not a good selfie. And I'm just not an expert in selfies. And I thought, wow. So for next time, if you can remember, try to use another angle, right? And this way, I wanted to laugh about myself, because if not, then you can find thousands things on yourself where somebody else put a seed in it, right? Mm-hmm. So then perhaps next time you don't do a video anymore. Perhaps you don't share your opinion anymore. Perhaps then you don't want to be criticized and you go back in your little world where it's safe and secure, and hope nobody else will judge you then.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's about a willingness to be vulnerable and just accept what it is, and then from that space, then we know that we are not going to contribute to anger, to violence, to judgment, and it's going to start with me. Mm-hmm. And so you can look at that video and you can say, look how beautiful I am. look at my beautiful spirit that's so passionate about helping. And that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And so that's my example for this one about how you might, have a dialogue with someone where you're practicing acceptance. It's, I hear how you feel and I accept how important this is to you. So I hear how you feel about your video and I hear how you feel about Nosy the elephant and I accept how important it is to you. And I'll throw another one in there, the compliment from the beginning one. I really love your dedication and your compassion and your self-awareness. It's beautiful. Regardless of whether or not we agree on this topic.
Right. But you know what? It's easier to do with you as an expert and as a therapist, because try to do it with your friends or family or your husband and tell them the story and they think, what's your problem? Like, there are just other people, just let it go. But you cannot let it go so easily because depending on what your personality is, you work on that, right? So you go through the scenarios and you want to have somebody more neutral talking with you and thinking. So the last time as we talked together and you helped me to go through other issues, it just helps you when you know you're in a loving place and somebody leads you and understands where you are, but also helps you to learn and to grow out of it, not just to say, what do you care, whatever, let it go, because you really don't let it go.
What you're discussing right now, I say all the time, would you rather plant yourself in a crack in the sidewalk? Because stuff grows in cracks in sidewalks, right? Like, it does grow eventually. Or would you rather plant yourself in a greenhouse? Where are you going to grow and flourish the fastest? So that's what I hear you saying, is it's easier to practice in a loving space and in a loving environment with someone who's open-minded and empathetic. And that is one of the best places that you can practice these things. And then once you've practiced them and you've gotten them under your belt, then you can take them out and practice them in the rest of the world. And what we do in life, we do in life. So if you learn how to do it in one place, then that means that you can apply it to every other area of your life. And I do recommend always practicing these things in safe places first. This is how I teach people about learning about to meditate also. It's always important to learn how to meditate when you're in a calm state. Because if you try to practice meditation and you don't have any experience of it, when you're in a panic attack, you're going to create a negative connection in your mind about meditation and associate it, right, with the panic attack. So it's really helpful, what you just pointed out, to learn and practice these things when you are in a safe space, because then you have a positive association with them and they're easier to call upon when you really need them.
So at the end, what you just said, and I learned that in NLP, you need to anchor it before you need it.
Yes.
Like, you know you need it, but you need still to anchor it in a situation where you connect it with a positive power as with something negative.
Yeah, so whenever I'm talking about this is the silly image that always flashes into my mind. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I've heard that you always play pool better in the condition that you learned to play pool. And most people learn to play pool while drunk at a bar.
So it means they don't really learn it.
But that's what I always think about, is that analogy that if you learn to play pool drunk, then you're going to play a better game of pool if you're drunk.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, positive self-talk and our mental health and not being drunk in a bar. But, that's the silly thought that comes into my mind.
I know you have.
The last step to dealing with clever people is protect your self-esteem. And that's really what you just started talking about. And that means know your limits. If you're to a point where you're getting triggered and you're going to say something that you know is going to be hurtful or is going to be a destructive force in the world rather than a constructive force in the world, then that's your opportunity to say something like, wow, this has really been a lively conversation. I need a time out just to maybe to reflect on what we've discussed. And give yourself some space and some time to cool down and to walk away, and limit your exposure to anyone that really might challenge your self-esteem so frequently that you start to doubt yourself. So be aware that there is always a way to separate yourself from a conversation that can be damaging, and to still be kind and to acknowledge the other person, but to protect your self-worth.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, so that's our final
Do
step.
we have a few minutes left for somebody who wants to come in and ask the question?
Sure.
Okay. Sarah, do you want to come in to ask the question? Or who else do we have with us? Let me see. Oh, Michael. Michael, are you blab ready today? Last time you were not blab ready. I remember that. Let's see. Oh, Sarah, do you want to join us? Just hop in. We're in the last few minutes. So if you have a question or if you just want to share your own experience with the topic judgmental people, and we have a few minutes left. In the meantime, I will just post here on the house consult so you can share.
That's great.
A little bit about the back end.
Yeah, anybody that has more interest in anything that I've said today, if anything I've said resonates with you, or you're interested in exploring therapy, or what a relationship with a therapist would look like, please feel free to reach out and to schedule a consult with me, or to call me or send me an email. We have Zala with us.
Zala.
Hi. Not really blab ready today, but really wanted to join in because it's an excellent topic today, right on point. So many things happened during this bank holiday and weekend, and I discussed the similar topic with a group of teachers I worked with on Friday, and you really, both of you gave me so many golden nuggets to think about. How actually really our judgments, and how basically the bias really kind of steers most of, for example, our actions or activities if we're not really conscious about it. So I'm really thinking about this now. Excellent topic, ladies, really.
Well, thanks, Alice. So I hear that the biases were an important concept for you. And the first one you said was, remind me again?
Well, we were discussing the biases in education, for example, the biases or the preconceptions that we have when we're learning or we're educating our students.
Ah, yes.
You know?
I didn't think of that one, Sarah, but you're totally right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like, and we were talking about it, how when you're a teacher, you kind of tend to forget that, sometimes we get lost in the loop of, oh, they don't want to listen to me, they don't want to learn anything, they're so ungrateful because they're not receiving what I'm giving them. And it's, I think it's a really good, all of your tips and this concept really, it's a gold mine at the moment for me. So it's given me a lot to think about and to work on also in the future with them.
Oh, I'm so glad that it's brilliant what you're talking about, especially when you're in the role of teacher, because a lot of times, anytime we're in an influential role, our goal is to teach what we know and believe. And it is so important to actually come from a wider space to teach what's available and not just what we believe.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake that a lot of parents make, and I'm sure that transcends into teaching, because parents select schools and guide their children in selecting colleges or career decisions based on what their value systems are, rather than allowing their children, their adolescents, to develop their own ideas and beliefs about what they want to explore in life. And so you're right on about how bias can create generations of judgment.
And I just thought about something, Sarah. You know what's interesting too? I'm really getting better in that, but for sure at the beginning I was bad, I think, because
unconscious,
yeah, because I have so much knowledge and expertise in my industry, right, in search engine optimization. So I thought when I present my results to the clients, they need to love it, right, because that's how it works. And I'm getting better, and they are experts in their field, so they know their audience, they know their target market, and perhaps what I see as the absolute perfect solution is in theory the absolute perfect solution to get the traffic in. But in reality, it's perhaps not the best human solution, not the best solution to really connect. So now I think I'm really getting better in finding something where both sides can live with. And
A
it's
win-win.
a win-win solution, where before I thought, no, we have to do this. We have to, that's the way how we do it. So I was so in my judgment, that's my way, the SEO way is the only way. So now I'm getting much more open because I'm much more solution oriented. I'm much more results oriented. Before, I just wanted to get this ranking. I wanted to get these keywords, but I did not have the end result as much in my heart and as much in my focus as what I have now. So for sure, it helps, like what Dawn teaches us, it helps everywhere. It helps me as an entrepreneur immense, because like with Nosy, right? This little elephant, it affected me as an entrepreneur, because now they judged me. And they judged me as a person. Now from helping a good cause, now suddenly becomes I felt like attacked from them as an entrepreneur. So I had to stay and say, no, they're just doing it out of a reaction that they feel attacked from me, because I think the elephant should go to sanctuary. They don't think it. So I think it's all about what is the end result, and there are always more than one solution.
Absolutely, there is always more than one solution, and it's always, my goal is always to create a dialogue, and to create an open dialogue, we have to come from an open-minded place, or else we're just creating an argument. And there's such a difference between creating a dialogue and an argument. When we're creating a dialogue about any topic, whether it's human rights, animal rights, politics, education, to create a dialogue, we're considering ideas, we're considering perspective, we're willing to change our perception when we learn new information. When we're creating an argument, we're going into it believing that we have to make our belief absolute, and that we have to enroll everyone else in our belief. And that is not my goal. Dialogue instead of argument.
Yeah.
Excellent conclusion, Dawn. Excellent, right on point.
Thank you, Zala, so much for joining us. I know it's late where you are, and I'm so grateful that you set aside the time to be with us and to call in.
11 o'clock.
I know, it's impressive. I'm so grateful. So have a great evening. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today live. Thank you if you're watching the video and you took your time to stay, especially to this point. And we look forward to seeing you next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our next topic, which I have not yet been inspired with, so it's a mystery.
No, we'll wait for the inspiration. They're always great real-life topics, which I love.
That is true. All right, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.